The current pulled gently against the seabed, carrying the rhythm of the tide through the coral kingdom. Talia moved with the flow, her body arching in a smooth, continuous curve that propelled her forward. Every stroke of her tail caught the filtered sunlight, scattering flashes of violet and magenta across the sandy floor. She navigated the narrow gaps between the towering coral spires, her hands brushing against the rough, calcified surfaces. The water here was alive with movement, humming with the vibration of 1,000 tiny organisms. She swerved around a jagged outcrop, her momentum carrying her into a wide, open basin where the light deepened. She slowed, her fins fanning out to stabilize her position. The silence of the deep was punctuated only by the rhythmic pulse. With a final, powerful thrust, she accelerated, cutting through the water toward the heart of the reef. Talia crested the final ridge and entered the central clearing. The water here was warmer, crowded with the hum of anticipation. Before she could call out, a flash of orange darted from behind a brain coral. Finn, the clownfish, zipped in, circling her twice before coming to a dead stop at her shoulder. Moments later, a slow, rhythmic thud signaled Shelly the turtle, who glided into the space with steady, deliberate strokes. Bubbles the pufferfish bobbed up from the seagrass, puffing his cheeks in a playful greeting, while Dash the dolphin broke the surface of the clearing with a sharp, joyful whistle. They converged on Talia, their movements locking into a synchronized formation. Finn darted between her arms, Dash nudged her side, and Shelly drifted into position just beneath her. Talia reached out, her fingers brushing against Dash's smooth skin and Shelly's sturdy shell. There was no need for words. They spun in a slow, graceful circle, their fins creating small eddies that swirled in the sand below. The festival was about to begin. Talia hummed a low note, and the others echoed it, their voices blending into a soft vibration that rippled through the clearing. The melody Talia hummed began to ripple outward, catching the attention of the nearby creatures. Finn darted in a playful loop, his fins flashing as he mimicked her rhythm. Dash whistled, a sharp, clear sound that cut through the water, while Shelly and Bubbles drifted closer, their movements relaxed and synchronized. The clearing was a tapestry of light and motion, the festival atmosphere reaching its peak. Then, the light changed. A heavy, cold shadow swept over the reef, extinguishing the vibrant colors. The water temperature dropped, sending a shiver through the group. Talia stopped humming. She turned, her eyes scanning the seabed. The playful whistles and bubbles ceased, replaced by a sudden, heavy silence. Talia kicked her tail, propelling herself toward the source of the darkness. Near the mouth of the trench, the sand was churned up. A massive, jagged rock had collapsed, pinning a small golden shape. It was Pinch. Talia reached the rock first, her hands pressing against the cold surface. She looked at her friends, her expression hardening. Talia lunged forward, but the water fought back. A violent, icy jet surged from the trench, slamming into her chest and forcing her backward. She kicked harder, her muscles straining against the invisible wall of pressure, but she remained pinned in place. Beside her, Dash tried to dart around the turbulence, but the current caught his dorsal fin, spinning him into a chaotic tumble. He whistled in frustration, fighting to regain his balance. Shelly retracted her head and limbs, hunkering down against the onslaught. Yet even her heavy shell was pushed inches toward the abyss. Bubbles struggled to stay upright, his body buffeted by the erratic, swirling eddies. Finn darted behind a jagged coral outcrop, using it as a shield. Talia looked back at the group, her lungs burning from the exertion. The water was no longer a medium for movement. It was a solid, crushing force. Every time they tried to advance, the trench exhaled a fresh wave. The rock-pinning Pinch groaned under the pressure. Talia reached out, her fingers clawing at the silt, but the sand simply washed away. Talia scanned the seabed, her eyes locking onto a thick, waterlogged branch caught in the coral. She darted toward it, grabbed the wood, and hauled it back to the rock. With a sharp grunt of effort, she jammed the end into a narrow crevice beneath the stone. It was a lever. She signaled her friends. Dash moved to her left, Shelly positioned herself to the right, while Finn and Bubbles braced against the top. They locked their muscles, tails thrashing against the silt to gain purchase. Talia threw her entire weight onto the driftwood. The wood bent, groaning under the immense pressure. The rock didn't move. She pushed harder, her lungs burning. The rock shifted a fraction of an inch. A cloud of sand erupted as the stone ground against the seabed. Talia screamed, a raw sound of exertion. With a sudden, violent pop, the rock lurched upward and rolled aside. Pinch scurried free. Talia let go of the wood. The silence that followed the rescue lasted only a heartbeat. Then, a sharp, high-pitched whistle cut through the water, followed by a chorus of clicks and hums. The reef erupted. Creatures emerged from every crevice, darting through the water in a frenzy of movement. Talia raised her arms, her voice rising in a clear melodic note that carried over the seabed. She began the rhythm, a steady, pulsing beat that demanded response. Finn, Bubbles, Shelly, and Dash circled her, their movements perfectly synchronized with her song. Sparkle bright, swim with glee, friends are magic in the sea. Wave your fins, spin around, joy and kindness can be found. The melody rippled outward, catching on the current. Hundreds of voices joined in, turning the reef into a living instrument. From the deeper currents, thousands of mermaids appeared, their movements fluid and fast. They joined the circle, spinning in tight, coordinated patterns that blurred into a kaleidoscope of color. The water seemed to vibrate with the energy of the dance. Talia spun, her hands tracing arcs in the water, leading the massive group through a series of complex, swirling maneuvers. They were moving as one, a vast, shimmering tide of joy. As the music faded into the rhythmic sway of the current, the sun broke through the surface, casting long, golden shafts of light down to the reef floor. The massive crowd dispersed, leaving the core group alone in the quiet warmth. Dash darted forward, flicking his tail to tag Finn, then vanished behind a cluster of brain coral. Finn didn't hesitate, banking hard to the left and accelerating into the open water. Bubbles followed, trailing a stream of air, while Shelly pushed off the sandy bottom, her flippers beating a steady, determined pace. The game of tag turned into a blur of motion. They wove through the coral towers, dodging around sea fans and darting under rocky overhangs. Talia watched from a distance, laughing as Dash performed a series of rapid rolls, narrowly avoiding Shelly's reach. The tension of the rescue was gone, replaced by the simple, sharp thrill of speed. They raced toward the edge of the reef, pushing their limits. They slowed their pace, drifting into a loose formation as the golden light began to dim. The reef felt different now, safer and more familiar. The golden light drained from the water, replaced by a deepening, soft indigo. Talia led her friends toward the central plaza, a wide, sandy basin nestled between the tallest coral spires. As they arrived, the first stars of the evening began to shimmer through the surface far above. Other residents of the reef were already gathering, their movements slow and deliberate. Talia reached into a woven basket and pulled out a cluster of glowing pearls. They pulsed with a warm, steady light, casting soft shadows against the sand. She passed them to Finn and Bubbles, who held them aloft, illuminating the faces of those arriving. The plaza became a sanctuary of light in the cooling water. Shelly and Dash joined the circle, their presence grounding the group as more creatures drifted in to listen. Stories began to flow, told in clicks, hums, and rhythmic gestures that mirrored the day's events. Each pearl was passed from hand to hand, a shared source of warmth that seemed to push back the encroaching night. Talia sat at the center, watching the light dance across the faces of her friends. There was no rush, no urgency, only the quiet exchange of memories. Talia stood, holding a single pearl high above her head. The light caught the water, turning the surrounding space into a shimmering sphere. She began to hum, a low, resonant note that traveled through the currents and vibrated against the coral walls. One by one, the others joined in. The sound grew, layering into a complex, melodic pulse that pushed outward from the plaza. It was not just a song. It was a declaration of unity. Finn, Bubbles, Shelly, and Dash circled the group, their fins beating in time with the rhythm. The melody climbed, echoing through the trenches and bouncing off the seabed, filling every corner of the reef with a sense of invulnerability. Thousands of voices merged into one, a powerful, joyful chorus that turned the indigo water into a living, breathing entity. Talia watched the faces around her, seeing the strength and peace reflected in their eyes. The song reached a crescendo, a final, soaring note that seemed to hold the very ocean still. Then, as quickly as it had risen, the sound tapered off, dissolving into the gentle, rhythmic sway of the tide. The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy with the weight of their shared history and the certainty of their bond. Talia looked out toward the vast, dark expanse of the ocean. The reef was quiet, safe, and waiting. She knew that tomorrow would bring new currents to navigate and new challenges to meet, but the fear was gone. As the last echoes of the song faded, she felt the pulse of the ocean beneath her.